Hey listeners, after the pod, don't forget to claim your free 2-week trial on the Better Yoga online studio. You'll get unlimited yoga and breathwork classes guided by expert instructors. We're a small women-owned business, and you signing up for the free trial really makes a difference. Now here's the show.
Hello and welcome back to the Better Yoga podcast. This is Kari Harendorf, and I have the privilege of interviewing my colleague and friend, who I just said to her, I feel like she only needs a one-name introduction like Cher, Dages. But her full name, for those of you that are not in the Katonah Yoga sphere, is Dages Juvelier Keates.
Perfect.
She is a senior Katonah Yoga teacher. I think I first met you in 2010 or 2011 at the Chelsea studio. And then there were a lot of years in between. But Dages is a senior Katonah Yoga teacher, a writer, a somatic educator, author, known for weaving myth, metaphor, and ritual into her deeply transformative teaching. She has a academia background, the arts, performer, and a performer of embodied practices. She's a poet. She brings a poet and both a poetic and a structured lens to the body, blending esoteric insights with practical tools for living well in the world. She's the author of the book Radical Acts of Embodiment, which is a manifesto of the Katonah Yoga theory and practice. And a new author, I want to talk about this, Breath Magic. You holding it up for our audience? I love it. I love it. Tiger was actually at the studio last night and said that it was beautiful. So, yeah, I want to get my hands on my own copy because breathing is one of the tenets of the Better Yoga practice that we do. And Dages leads teacher trainings, weekends, immersions, mentorships, literally across the globe. Dages, thank you so much. It is my honor to have you here, and thanks to Josie, who when Tiger asked her who should we interview next, she was like Dages. I was like, yes.
Wow, I'm so honored to be here, and your introduction just gave me truth bumps. It made me really feel like, wow, that is such a generous read. I really appreciate that.
Well, thank you. You are a generous soul and a generous educator. I've actually been in your classroom as a student. Took a winter wellness workshop with you. So she is a witch. She's a witch and a weaver, everybody, and unapologetically so. So really an amazing human that we really need on this planet right now.
Oh, thank you.
Dages, we ask all of our guests this first question, and you can interpret it and answer it any way you'd like. But what does your practice look like these days?
These days, my practice has really radically changed from everything I thought it was supposed to be. 27 years ago when I started, 17 years ago, 7 years ago. And I think one of the most magnificent aspects of working with Naveen over these years is learning to be generous with oneself as you recontextualize your practices within the goal of having a good life, right? Rather than to be a dutiful soldier or a beautiful girl or a good girl. So my practice, I started meditating lying down a few years ago. And that now is the kind of centerpiece of my daily esoteric practice. I practice this form of meditation where I relax into being. And then outside of that, my physical practice, I rarely do like a formal asana practice on my own at home. I go to class. I've been going into Pilates classes. I'm trying to do things, especially with my muscles that I haven't been practicing for many years, working inside of this joint space. And so now when I do asana, it's within a communal context again, which is a real joy. And I think after so many years of a practice that fundamentally, for me, was controlling and retracting a bit away from the world, trying to manage myself inside of myself, the maturation of my practice now is much more kind of ripe and abundant and falling open and in public. It's a kind of practice in public. And then the other aspects of what those daily rituals, routines are that do the weaving, the blending of conscious movement, of imaginative development, of working with breath. So it could be something like a breathwork practice in the sun. It could be foraging. Right now, I'm in a place where I can spend time every day with my feet in the soil and my mouth on the dandelions and feeling through the violets. And then very often for me, my kitchen practices, from cooking to making tinctures or unguents that then transition to the bath. These are my daily practices at this point.
I love that. And just found out that you are in Massachusetts like me. So are you doing the ramps and the and the morels and all?
I'm munching everything. I'm out there just like I'm like a horse.
Yeah, it's so good. It's so good. I loved what you said, and mirroring that. First of all, just the 27 years. I just turned 55 on Monday and realized last week that I have now been practicing. I started doing yoga when I was 27, like my
Yeah,
27th year.
yeah,
So I've now been doing yoga half my life,
yeah.
right? And thinking about how that's what that means, how the yoga has changed. Even though
Um,
you have the home practice and it's
yeah,
ritualized,
uh,
I'm not the same person I was at 27. Like it's a much different practice. And am feeling also that I'm being pulled into community
yes,
in a new way. I feel like I'm kind of really fully emerging from COVID
yes,
and I've been wanting to go and play in class,
yeah,
you know? And, did a warm vinyasa on my birthday. And
yeah, yeah.
it's like muscle memory. Like that's not my practice. That's not what I do. But it was like, oh, this is fun. I can
Absolutely. Yeah.
drop right in.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
55. This is
Yeah.
amazing. I'm 44, so I feel like we're doing the
Yeah.
double number thing.
The double numbers. Yeah. It was 5-5 on 5-5. So it was like
That's
and
so cool.
5, right? For the Katonah people, 5. It was like total consciousness in the box, right? Right in the and I feel that. I feel like I am really in the middle of my life right now, and that's
Yeah.
a whole other podcast. But tell me about how you first came to Katonah Yoga.
Absolutely. I met Naveen when she had the studio in Chelsea, and I was really dragged in kicking and screaming. I was very mad at yoga. I was mad at Yoga World. I felt so betrayed by the bullshit from, oh, can I curse?
Yeah, go for it.
From the various lineages we know about,
Yep.
and the bad behavior of people in these positions of power. So I felt very jaded. I was in graduate school and I was just like, I'm done. I want to do my performance practice. I want to think about stuff. I'll do my own home practice, but I don't want to be around yoga worlds or yoga gurus or yoga cults. I'm over it. And so when my dear, dear friend, Bill Gluck, who passed a couple of years ago, he was a student of mine from like 2004. I think I met him in 2004. And he had met Naveen and then Abby, and he was just obsessed. And literally, Kari, every day he would text me or call me, "You gotta come down, you gotta come down, you gotta come down," even though it was going up. It was going and I eventually, after truly 1 year of this peer pressure, I said, "Bill, I'm going to go one time, but then I need you to shut up and never bring it up again. I already am so oriented against this practice just from pressure." So I thought I was going to go in and hate it. And of course, I went into the studio in Chelsea. And first of all, the vibe was just so cool. It was like people liked each other,
Yeah.
women liked each other. People were all different ages. There were older folks there. There were people, it felt like a community,
They
you
were
know?
helping each other before class.
Yeah. And people were going in and like doing stuff for themselves. And it just felt so alive. And it didn't feel like a yoga brand. So it didn't feel like a business. And from the get, that was intriguing to me. And, 10 seconds later, Naveen walked in the room, and then it was like, oh my God. I mean, I was obsessed with her from the beginning. The
Oh, no
things
way.
coming out of her mouth, the rapidity of her thought, the syncretic way that she was putting things together, the references she was pulling from, it was just fireworks. And then the physical practice, which I just found to be mind blowing, intelligent, therapeutic, adding up. And then over time, of course, I couldn't believe it, transformed my body so much. I felt so much better. I felt good. I felt strong. I felt whole. I felt confident and competent. And it was like, oh, this works. Like, this is what I was into from the beginning with yoga. I liked that there was a practice that did something. You do it and it changes something, it gives you some control.
Right.
Um, but it was also, it was the clarity, the crispness of her wisdom transmitted through her words, through her touch, through all of it. So I came in and then I never left. I'm still in.
Yeah. I mean, sharing it with everyone, which is so lovely. Can you share a little bit about your academic background and your writing and how that influences your teaching?
Yeah, absolutely. I came into, I guess, academic study in a roundabout way. I have a dance background. I went to an art boarding school. I studied dance choreography for my undergraduate degree, but I was at a liberal arts college. And I grew up in Wyoming, so it wasn't like an intellectual hotbed, right? So I come to this, no offense, in that standard way,
Right.
intellectual in many ways, cowboys. But when I came into the world of liberal arts education, it was so exciting for me. It was like I didn't know we were allowed to think about these things or spend time having these questions. It was the introduction to theology, to philosophy, to gender studies and sexuality studies, to everything related to bodily practice, but in this in this other framework that would end up framing the questions that I've had for the last, almost 3 decades. Um, and so once I graduated, I kept these questions with me, and they traveled with me through my yoga certifications, my time living in these more ashram environments or intense meditation practice environments, eventually to my seminary study. I studied within ultra orthodoxy and the Jewish tradition in Jerusalem and developed my way of thinking in a kind of Talmudic way. I mean, Talmud light, but these philosophical practices, language-based practices, deep reading. Um, and then when I came back to the States, it started to feel like, oh, there's a way that people do this kind of inquiry, and it's called academia. Right? People do this thing in school, and then there's support. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can actually get like a supervisor and access to a library, and you don't have to scrap it all together. So I entered graduate school, really not having a great understanding of how academia functioned at all. I wanted to study everything. In my graduate degree, I was hoping to do like a comparative study of the Homeric hymns and the Hebrew, Kabbalistic tradition of the emergence of the category of woman. Like, this was my idea of what I was going to figure out in 2 years of graduate school.
Basically, your thesis on the feminine.
Yeah, the emergence of the feminine as a
I'll think.
category and its implications. So not really the best mind for academia, actually. I have a much more robust, voracious, fickle uh, picking methodology. But
Mhm.
I really enjoyed my study. I thought I would do a PhD. I'd applied to these different programs. I got a few offers, which was like a miracle. And this was around the time I met Naveen, and she asked to read my master's thesis. I shared it with her, and she was just like, come work for me. So that was a shift. She was like, graduate school, academia will always be there. Go back in your 40s. And I have not
Well, she's
regretted it.
also an academic, so she,
100%.
recognized that in you.
A mystic, a mystic, mystic.
Yes. Yes. Well, like I said, you're a witch too, so. Um, what role does metaphor play in your teaching? And I know it's central in the Katonah teaching, which is probably, and you probably had, from what you were just saying, what you were wanting to do your thesis on, you had that in you already. This must have
Yeah,
just been an incredible match when you found Katonah, right? It was a
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's part of the dancerly technique as well. As
sure.
dancers, language becomes embodiment.
Mhm.
In classical ballet, you're training shapes, you're looking in the mirror, but in many forms of
Modern,
contemporary
right?
dance, you're taking it's an oral tradition. You're learning poetry and you're letting that language transform your shape. You're letting the language decompose you and resurrect you and pour you from state to state to state so that your dancing really is more alchemical than purely aesthetic. So I think I had a resonance with that. I've been practicing this tool of using metaphor as a bridge between mind in scare quotes, body in scare quotes, or between different people's bodies, right? As you learn choreographies from older people or from other generations, your body becomes the ephemeral archive, the dancing archive of whatever those images were. So I think I came to Naveen's material already really like, yes, this is my jam. This is what I'm interested in. This is my language. Um, and I feel I love more consciously using metaphor now. Like I've thought pedagogically at this point about its function. And for me, one way that we work with metaphors is to make them a bit hermetic. And this can be a little, especially in our current climate. I want to resist fascism wherever I find it, in myself and everywhere else. So if the metaphor is too tight, then it starts to tip over into something that's not serving. It's not true, right? So the body is not a house. We can use the metaphor of a body as a house. At the same time, we know the body is also a vehicle, right? It's a mobile home. So as we start to mix metaphors, we can destabilize the sense that we can know what a body is or what a body is for, or that we even can know what we are or what we are for. I see the use of multiple metaphors, this palimpsestic use of metaphors,
Mhm.
as a way of getting closer to the reality that we are consciousness, that we are consciousness of the universe and we're mostly empty space. And how magical and mysterious is that?
Beautiful. It's beautiful. I mean, just you can build a whole practice just on that, right? And then
Absolutely.
seeing how that transforms to the physical where people don't have the space inside or the consciousness woven through them. So there's a lot, just that can be a whole lifetime inquiry of reintegration,
Yes.
you know? It's beautiful.
Yes.
Um, and so, okay, so Katona uses, they're very prop heavy. And I know that you love to teach and you really use the chairs
I do love the
um,
chair.
and the blocks, right? So can you talk a little bit about the props and the geometry and how, again, going back to this like consciousness and spaciousness that you were talking about, how the structure enhances freedom?
Beautiful. Such a good question. I love these, Kari. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Um, so the personality holds the the defense, right? We have the essence, we have the truth, we have the beauty of who we are. And then we have our experiences, which make us more personal. And the personal is so beautiful, but it's also where we experience our damage. It's where we experience our suffering. Suffering is always personal. Pain is universal, suffering is personal.
Exactly.
So, um, one's posture holds the shape of the life experience. And so whenever I'm, like I was talking before about using muscles, whenever I use my muscle, I'm using them to do something I already know.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, you'll always go back to what you already know. You've already mastered what you already know. But of course, what you've mastered, what you already know, what you do again and again, is what
Your
breaks
default.
you.
You're going to go to it.
You're going to wear out your favorite shoes. It's a bummer. You're going to stain your favorite dress. So either you learn to wear other dresses or you keep investing in the same one. And using props is me styling my dress a lot of different ways. Using the props gives me an opportunity to come out of the way I've figured out how to do it and to rely on something more than what I've managed to figure out on my own. It takes me into the realm of what is technical, what's shared, what's skill-based, what I have learned, what I can teach that is no longer so personal. And I love the poetics. I love the personal. I love the fleshiness. But then there's the peach pit, and the pit goes on. So working with props are pits.
Right.
And working with the chair, for instance, I was just working with someone yesterday. We were doing a lot of the leg work, the warrior stuff, all the lungy things, which are so arduous when you're muscling them. But when you use the architecture, you're able to get all the organ pleasure and all of the space without exhausting yourself. And that's smart. There are seasons in life. There are times you want to jump around and exert a lot of effort. And there are times you just want to be very efficient. So I find the props give me that efficiency. And they also really give me something physically to cross reference that gives me a real boundary.
Mm-hmm.
And the purpose of the boundary is not a limitation as a constriction, as a punishment. The goal of the boundary is to give you the container for a self. So I love the
Yeah.
props.
For me as a mother, it's like the binds or
Mm,
that structure of the props. It's like having the
mm,
consistent schedule for the toddler so they feel
mm,
safe. So
mm,
then they can make a lot of choices with it. It's like, do you
mhm,
want to wear the red dress or the blue dress?
mhm. Yes,
So they get to choose, but it's still
yes,
very formal. Otherwise
yes,
you'd be following that toddler around on their whim, and that's a whole other leads to a whole other disaster. But the same
absolutely.
thing. It's formal and
Exactly.
informed, you
Yeah.
know?
It's the world of the four. I'm in the world of the fours, you're in the world of the fives, but the
Mm.
four, it's the frame, right? It's a
Exactly.
door. It's what gives you warp and woof. It's the boundaries. Of course, the five is where it's at. The five is the volume, the five is the stellar, the five is you
Right.
activating those polarities. But to put yourself, I mean, for me, I think for many of us who trained as dancers or gymnasts or many other types of folks, to be given that those boundaries, it's like the difference between a sandbox and just like the earth. You get to play in the sandbox.
Right. Yeah. So good. Yeah. I love that. Um, are there any particular archetypes or mythological themes that you find yourself returning to again and again in your practice or teaching, or maybe because in the realm of the fours, as you say?
Mm, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, the one that first comes to mind, I think a lot of the stories that I find myself referencing again and again have to do with how you put something back together, what can be put together, how you can untie your knot, or, in the Greek myth of Ariadne and the thread and the Minotaur. This one I feel like I go back to again and again. It's so central to what I've learned from Naveen, but also because it's this image of the thread. And we have the Sutra Atman, we have these metaphors of the thread of the self, the personal weave of each breath, the personal stitch of each breath inside of a body that you weave into the great tapestry, the great myth of humanity, the myths of humanity. Um, and that sometimes we find ourselves lost and encountering monsters. And then even if you slay the monster, how do you not lose your mind? All of us are dealing with traumas. It's the fundamental anthropological situation, as Jean Laplanche would say, a psychoanalyst who I really love, also a winemaker.
Oh, well,
Um,
do many things.
and all things we love. It's not to think that people don't fall apart. And I think a central aspect of my practice is acknowledging what has fallen apart or what feels broken, and then working with those broken bits, uh, unraveling the knots, reweaving the narrative, um, switching over to the Ariadne's thread from like the Hansel and Gretel with the broken bits of bread that the birds eat, and then you end up eaten by the witch. It's like, let's
Yeah,
shift
because you
the
lose your way. Because you lose your way because you use breadcrumbs instead of a thread.
exactly, exactly. Yeah, and anything I'm reading, I feel like uh, it will come in. There are like seasons. When I was living in Sweden, I got really into the myths around Yggdrasil, obviously, this tree with the three levels. You have these themes across traditions that are fun to play with together. Um, and one of the things that I understood from my brief study of Norse mythology that I'm totally obsessed with, and again, I could be kind of making it up, but it's what spoke to me, is this idea of the end of the world, Ragnarok, what happens in the great battle between everybody at the very, very end. And at the very end, it's just over.
Hmm.
No rebirth, no recycling, it's not happening again. And it's such an interesting way um, to think about space, to think about time, to think about things just that certain things can just be over, that there's nothing to control, there's nothing to contain, just poof. So this comes for me a lot with breath work, especially with the kind of esoteric approach to exhalation, which is you're going to die on one. There's going to be one time the exhalation goes out and the inhalation doesn't pour back in.
Mhm.
And so it can be a very simple but profound practice to really be with the total letting go, the actuality of the breath really leaving the body and letting it be over.
Yeah. Well, that's why the kumbuk at the end of the exhalation is so much harder for people than holding
Yes.
full, right? It's
Yes.
the practice of death, like a little
Yes.
death every time. Let's segue into your latest project since we're talking about breath. Breath magic. I was so excited. I think it first just came into I saw it just a week ago or 2 weeks ago, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Perfectly timed for our podcast interview.
Yes,
But you have been
exactly.
busy. You've been busy. You were so busy.
Before you fast forward through this, don't miss your 15% discount on Ayurvedic wellness products from Banyan Botanicals. Use the code KARI15 to save on oils, herbs, cleansing essentials, teas, and more. That's KARI15. The link you need is in our show notes. You deserve to know exactly what's in your greens and protein powders. That's why Vibrant Health fully discloses every ingredient by dose and never uses proprietary blends. Save 20% on your next order with the code BETTER_YOGA. That's better_yoga for 20% off Vibrant Health supplements and superfoods.
It's one of I like to make stuff.
Mhm.
I like to play with these ideas, but these cards, I started working on them 9 years ago,
Oh, wow.
just in categorizing them and figuring out how I wanted to structure it. Um, these precise practices were the hook for me when I first started practicing what became my yoga practice. It was these measured breath techniques that gave me a beginning, a middle, and an end, something to do on the four corners of, I don't think I even had a yoga mat at the time, four corners of my feet and my
Yeah.
shoulders. Yeah, these specific formulas that gave me access to my interiority. Because they were so important for me, I wanted to bring them forward, to share them in a direct way. It's been a journey for me. I tend to make things very complex. So making these cards, I've been trying to figure out what the right way to transmit, these 54 practices are. So this is the beta version. We've made these. I'm delighted with them. I love them. And I'll learn a lot more about what they could be, what they should be, through being interacted with by other people. Um, and I started working with Jason Bacasa, the graphic designer, uh, book and the cards during late COVID 4 years ago. And we got really excited about the color palette. We played with a lot of different things. He had this wonderful idea. He designed them. They're already a bit complex. But so that the number is this kind of sign rather than simply a number. And I loved that. And then on the other side of the card, I drew an image that corresponded to my internal experience of that breath technique. Like if I'm drawing the feeling I have, the image I have during the breath technique, we use that as the basis. And we palimpsestically layered that over the tattvas, the tantric elements that I saw some connection with each of these breaths. And there are all kinds of little things built in like that, which I'm also in a process of, letting go of and letting become more simple.
And is there a reason for the 54? Is it like 9? Is it the 9?
The
Three Trinity?
54 is, so I wanted a very classical deck of cards. So
Mhm.
it is just the 4 suits. It's 13 cards each. And then there are a couple wild cards. I used to call them trump cards, but not anymore.
No.
A couple jokers that are wild, a
Oh,
couple kind of
amazing.
weird breaths.
Well, how weird, how wonderful that it is 54, which is 9. 5 and 4 is 9, and the 3 trinities. Right?
Love that.
So good. Are you gonna be rolling this out, or is it, I mean, I know it's available at the studio and you can just buy it, but I see that you're teaching a weekend on it.
Yes.
Is it meant to be like an embodied learning with you, and
Yes.
that's the beta test as well?
Exactly.
Amazing.
And yeah, I just wanted to expose more of the thinking behind the cards and teach some of the actual practices, go through them together, experiment with them together. Um, and yeah, see what happens. See what happens through our shared experience, because many of these practices are quite known. If you've been hanging out in the Katonah Yoga world, you'll know many of these. Some are maybe a bit, my background, one of my first lineages was Kundalini Yoga, it's taught by Yogi Bhajan. And so, I harvested plenty of material from
Right.
there with a different philosophical approach, obviously. Um, so I think it'll be fun also to just teach the physicality, the actual practices of some of these techniques, and then to find the way that they come together. I worked with them in their beta version with a group recently, and we had the group, I think we're 7 people, everyone drew a card,
Mhm.
and then I just taught from the cards that had been drawn, and it was so cool. It was like, it was a kind of snapshot of everyone who was in the room, and like a never before, never again kind of scenario. What are the chances you would get that order? And so it was just, as a teacher, it was really fun, because it's
Course.
not putting it together my way. And then as a student, it's really fun because it's so fresh.
Of course. It was like a tarot reading of breath work.
Yeah, exactly. And I like the specificity too, even for myself. Um, Everything, you get into these habits. It's like, oh, I've been eating radicchio for the last 6 months, and there's arugula. I love that. When I draw a card and I just commit, I'm going to do 3 minutes of this practice. It's such a pleasure. I'm not tasting the same thing again. I get something. It's a decision made for me. It's another kind of container. It's another
Right.
4 corners.
Right. Well, it's also because, from the beginning of our conversation where you're talking about dance and the embodiment and the creativity of that, but yet you're also in academia. um it's it gives you the discipline of the practices there. You pull the card, but the creativity of which 7 people are going to pull the card, or the creativity of that, the embodied practice itself, right? Like you could
Yeah.
do breath of fire, or you could do 100 count, or you could play the
Yeah.
magic, the staircase, but it's different every time.
Yes, which is, I mean, that's the thing about the relation between the personal and the planetary, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
we're mostly all the same stuff, but the personal experience of it is that's the Leela, that's the stuff.
That's the stuff.
Um, yeah, and I find with practices, especially, you know, I don't know if I should call it yoga. I don't know what to call it, but these activities that we're doing, um, these are lifelong practices. And if they are to become about consciousness and revealing more of who we are, revealing more of life, then it can't just be a rote repetition that becomes unconscious again. If it becomes unconscious again,
You got to change it up.
right,
You got to do something different.
right.
Yeah. Yeah. I know somatics are a big part of your practice and you teach that. And I have worked, a little bit with somatics in my yoga therapy training, but have seen the great transformation that can come from that. Um, can you speak a little bit to that in terms of maybe your personal practice or how you weave that in when you're doing workshops or helping people who may be stuck?
Yeah, I mean, I think even practices like yoga or meditation can start to feel so disembodied.
Hmm.
Um, and this is a lie. There's nothing that we experience that isn't bodily. There's no part that's not body. There's no mind that isn't body. There's no breath that isn't body. And I love the esoteric traditions and I want to go into the complexity, but it really always is a way back into direct experience. And direct experience is somatic. So in a sense, I feel that all of the techniques I'm practicing or I'm attracted to and then want to move forward are ways of not just bringing, it's not bringing the body with, it's dissolving the illusion that there's other than somatic experience.
Right? Like all the writing, especially the last couple of years, this buzzword of like mind and body, body and mind. It's like they were never apart. They were never apart.
Like, really, we're going to double down on this one? This
Yeah.
is this is a
Right.
binary we want to lock into. Okay.
Um, what's something you've changed your mind about in your teaching over the past few years?
That's a great question.
Mm.
Something I've changed my mind about in my teaching. The cough of truth. I think a few years ago, even when I wrote Radical Acts, I was in more of a position of feeling that teachers should be um, more neutral containers.
Mm.
That the job of a teacher was to hold a kind of therapeutic space. And I don't know that I think that the same way anymore. As a teacher, I'm feeling more like I show up with honesty, not providing that space, but by being truly myself and sharing from my own practice, just like I'm a person. Not stepping into the role of the teacher the way I had kind of organized that inside of myself a few years ago. There's been a shift there.
Um, how do you navigate your own practice when life feels chaotic?
It's the have to. I mean, one of the
I'm sure there's been many times, because you're 44, where life has been chaotic. This is something um, that I've personally struggled with, but, struggle with it with my loved ones in terms of the practices. It's like, you're not practicing peace if all you do is go to yoga festivals and peace rallies.
oh god, no. What
You
no.
have to be able to practice peace in the face of violence, right? Like the
Mhm,
tools, the
mhm,
the meditation, the breath work, whatever the dinacharya or the ritucharya is, your
mhm.
daily or seasonal practices, like it's for when life is chaotic. It's
That's right.
for when the going gets tough, right? But I find it so hard to remember, even if it's muscle memory, even if it's
Yep,
rote,
yep, yep,
um, to turn back to it.
yep. It's so true what you say. I think a couple of things. When I was in my early 20s, I think it was like a Buddhist, maybe it was a Vipassana teacher. Someone said this about, you practice now for the time that you can't. And I have found that to be so true. Sometimes when the shit is hitting the fan, you're not practicing. That's not the right thing to do. That's not the thing to do. You need to address what's happening. Um, and that's your practice.
Yeah.
There's any moment of your life can be your practice. Anything you're doing can be your practice.
She was vacuuming when we started the podcast. Right?
That was my karma yoga job during my
Well,
first.
but that's your practice, right? It's like chop wood, carry water, chop wood,
Yeah,
my practice is mucking.
yeah,
It's
yes,
just this clean up shit all the time.
yes,
You know?
yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
No shit, no mammals.
That's right.
No
No
muck,
mud,
no
no
lotus.
lotus.
Yoga journal, eat your heart out.
There you go. Um, yeah.
Yeah, so there is something to the acknowledgement that a practice it's not a fetish item. Sometimes we need to treat it that way. Sometimes we need to put it on the altar. And sometimes we need to just take it into the outhouse.
Yeah.
Um, you find the altar of your outhouse.
Yeah.
And and I think that's one of the things, it's one of the changes I find, like in teaching, I feel like I've learned so much about love because I learn how to change my gaze from the kind of inherited judgmental way of looking at bodies I receive. It's part of our culture. I learn to look differently and it changes me. And it makes me kinder to myself, which
Mm.
then makes me a better guy all around.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think the same with the practice. When it becomes, Jack Cornfield will say, like a grim duty. I love that way of putting it together. When it feels like that, when I feel like I'm like throttling myself into doing something, or that it becomes, as I said, a fetish object, sometimes that is needed. And sometimes it's just to let go and recognize that a practice is nestled in something so much greater than a Manduka yoga mat or a 30-minute timer where you do your practice.
Yeah. I love that grim duty, and I appreciate, and something you said was like aspirational, because again, growing up in the lens of, the American culture, I really came of age in the 80s when it was all about those fashion magazines and the models and the comparison. And you as a dancer, I mean, I was a dancer too, much younger. It's a different way. And then parlaying that to as a yoga teacher and looking at bodies and making assumptions. But something what you'd said, and it reminded me what I love what Naveen said. She's like, everyone is so smart.
Yeah.
Everyone is so talented.
Yeah.
And being able to receive that, it brings it buffs the edges of our sharpness, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
And as a teacher, we have so much to learn still,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. I mean, we can amplify the pain body,
Mm.
or we could, try and address that in our own practices, because especially when we're in these spaces of being teachers, they are authority positions. And we're broadcasting so much along with, we're going to do downward dog and then we're going to do, lunge. There's a lot more that's being transmitted than that. And I agree. I remember the first few times I was with Naveen and she read me, I would just cry because the way she was
Yeah.
seating me, what she was communicating was so much kinder than I ever would have imagined was possible. And it changed me. It changed my life to be gazed upon that way. And she is my mentor, and it's something I've really tried to move forward, to replicate,
Yeah.
amplify.
Yeah. If you've had yourself read by Naveen, it's an experience for
It's
sure.
empowering.
Yeah, so beautiful. Um, what's currently inspiring you right now? Art, books, movies, conversations,
Mm,
places. I know.
what's currently inspiring me right now? Also a great question. I have to tell you, it's a bit complicated because a year ago, my father died.
Mm,
And this, of course, was a very difficult portal to move through. But through his death, a lot of things became available to me, or my eyes were circumcised in a way, um, to realities I could not perceive before. And I've experienced so much love. I have experienced the deep love of my friends, of my loved ones, of community. I think that what's inspiring right now is the very mundane, magnificent kindness of the people in my life, the miracle of the people in my life. I feel inspired by my friendships.
yeah. I mean, that's the secret to longevity and health span, right? Of all the blue zones and all the like the
Yeah.
the through line is that community and showing up for each other.
Yeah. Yeah. And to really, I think also just going back to the beginning of the conversation and the kind of way I approached my practice when I started, really trying to steel myself against, hide myself from, to potentiate my individuality almost against the world. This period now of really learning the abundance, the abundance of beauty that is already happening between us. Um, I've experienced so much real friendship, and I think it was always there, but my orientation was a bit more um, paranoid. So I think there's been a huge transformation for me, yeah, in stepping through this life transition, and it's just like the lens has shifted, something has cleared, and I feel my connectedness to these friends as I'm talking about, to my loved ones, to my lover, but also to my students
Mhm.
in a much less fuzzy way. It's There's the clarity of that connection. So, yeah, I would say I feel inspired by the clarity of my connections with other people.
Thank you. If you could offer one teaching or an image to someone seeking to reconnect with their body, with their
Mm.
spirit, with themselves, what would it be?
The thing that comes to me
Mhm.
is if one seeks to connect, to stop and get close to the earth, to get weight on your body close to the earth, and to breathe in dialogue with the green beings of the planet, because the planet is your body, and you are the consciousness of the earth. And I find that those simple activities of turning towards breath and gravity, which are always free, will take you home.
Yeah. I mean, I just went back in our conversation of you saying that you started lying down to meditate,
Hmm.
right? I
Yeah,
mean, that's
yeah.
more contact with the earth.
And in fact, Kari, these very first practices I was talking about, which were taught to me by Deborah Noble, who was a yoga teacher, Pilates teacher, who I
Mhm.
met in the 90s. She had us practice these breath techniques in constructive rest. So I'm going back to my beginnings. My first practices, they were lying down on my back, counting my breaths,
Yeah,
and
full
then
constructive rest. Arms crossed,
exactly.
balls of the feet on a blanket, black
Yes.
between the knees.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I credit, I learned from Rodney Yee in their 200-hour and 300-hour when we would start pranayama, like the 9-month-long trainings for 6
Yeah.
months, there was no pranayama. There was
Yes.
just breath awareness. Shavasana, breath awareness.
Yeah.
Because, you don't know who the breather is. You better
Yeah.
not start layering control practices over a dysfunctional breath or something you have no consciousness of at all. And that was life changing,
Mm.
you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
And for someone who is
Absolutely.
going to teach breath, as your new project, is like, who's the breather,
That's the question.
right? And if you don't know that about yourself, you can't be teaching other people that. That's that's magic and power that
Mm.
if you don't understand it, you can't be teaching it. That's really how
Mm.
that's because you could be doing
Mm.
more harm. And, as
Mm.
teachers, is first do no harm.
Mhm. And of course, whatever you teach, you learn.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes I'll realize I'm spouting off about something, or I'm like really, I'm really doubled down on something. No one's giving any resistance, but I'm just, who are you talking to? Listen to yourself. Take your own. Yeah, okay. Let's work with that on our own time.
Right.
Moving on.
That's
Here
so funny.
goes.
Um, what does home in the body mean to you now?
Home in the body.
Yeah.
What's home in the body mean to me now? I mean, it's the whole deal. It's the whole
Because
traveling rodeo.
I haven't seen you in a while,
Yes.
but you seem at home on a whole other level, on a
Thank
whole
you.
other softness,
Yeah.
embodiment,
Oh,
embrace, a whole other embracing of
mm,
all parts of you. It's really
thank you.
beautiful.
Thank you. I think that is my aspiration, my spiritual aspiration in practice
Mm.
is to make a home for my soul
Mhm.
and live in that home as well as I can with a lot of, baked goods to be offered around to the community.
Yeah.
um yeah, and it's one of the reasons I was so attracted to the Katonah Yoga community. Just seeing these older women, I prayed and prayed and prayed for an embodied female teacher. That in my 20s, I wanted to learn from a woman who'd lived life and had experiences and was of a different generation. And I'm realizing now I am becoming that next generation. I am.
You are that. If you're only listening, both of us are welling up with tears. But that's from the truth, right? Like,
Yeah.
you said you felt had the truth bumps. That's
Yeah.
when everything you're saying and it's just landing because
Mm,
you are that embodied teacher for so many. And
thank you.
yeah,
Thank you. We're all crone bound.
hopefully.
I guess, please.
I mean, all
Crone
this
bound
like
and crone bound.
anti-aging, I'm like, anti-aging, that just means you're gonna die young. Like there is no such thing. There's no cream, guys. Don't buy the cream. It's these practices, right?
Yeah.
And it's health
Uh,
span and like,
yeah.
all the
Mm.
other menstruating females are the leaders of their community after
Yeah.
they go into menopause.
Yes.
The whales, the belugas. Yeah, you're that.
Oh, wow. I really thank you so much
Yeah.
for that generosity. And I am just so honored to be part of this community. And I'm so grateful for the work that you're doing and in opening up our stories and sharing these practices that we have outside of just the yoga room, extending these practices we're in to a broader community through the podcast.
Yeah. Well, as you said, we learn from each other. How can people find you, Dages?
Oh, I'm around. I'm teaching a training in Frankfurt, an intensive with
With
Manuel and Beth.
Manuela and Rebecca?
Mhm,
Ah, it's the
mhm,
best. I love
the
playing with
best.
them.
So fun. I'll be teaching on the Katonah Yoga mentorship in the fall. And then I offer some of my own little one-on-one mentorships, generally for teachers, but not exclusively for people who want to have an ongoing dialogue about
Right.
something in their teaching or in their practice. So I have a website. I update it like twice a year. I have an Instagram. I try to be a little more current with that. But yes, I'm around and available.
We'll put your website and your Instagram in our show notes. And thank you so much. It's been so nice to be face to face and reconnect with you. Thank you for bringing your work and your magic out into the world.
Thank you.
Much needed at this time, for sure. And you're so close. I'd love to be in person with you. Hopefully, we can
Let's
make that
do it.
happen soon.
Let's do it. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for this wonderful conversation. I feel very brightened and emboldened and excited by this time together.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you so much.